You might remember that one of my favorite smartphones last year was the LG G2, mainly because of all the features and its design. But what happens when you give me an LG G3 for a week and make me compare it to the iPhone 6? I'm Jaime Rivera. This is Pocket Now, and this is iPhone 6 versus LG G3. Both the iPhone 6 and the LG G3 have proven to be some of our favorite devices this year. One is the cream of the crop when it comes to design and comfort, and the other is one of the best powerhouses you can buy. About the only thing that's similar when it comes to the hardware is that both displays are made by LG, and boy, are these a sight to see. The LG G3 manages to fit a gorgeous 5.5-inch Quad HD display into some of the thinnest bezels in the market, while the iPhone 6 keeps it more conservative with a 4.7-inch display. Colors on both displays are amazing, the iPhone 6 being a tad brighter and easier to use in direct sunlight though. And even with the crazy 200 pixel per inch difference between these displays, stop looking for pixels on either because you won't find them. That said, both displays suffer from growing pains as applications that aren't optimized for either display resolution can look fuzzy on its respective platforms. Where things are most different is in their designs. Apple took a more elegant route with anodized aluminum, a thin profile, and gentle curves, while LG is a more substantial phone with faux metal finish and a plastic chassis. The G3 is 8mm taller, 7.6mm wider, 2mm thicker, and 20 grams heavier than the iPhone 6, though it's not like if LG cares about not being thin and light. The G3 was designed to be the best flagship you can buy, and its lack of compromise with things like a replaceable 3000 mAh battery and 32 gigs of storage with microSD expansion make the iPhone 6 look bad when it comes to specs, at least the ones that actually matter. The iPhone 6 is no slouch when it comes to the spec sheet for the average user, but the G3 was made with more of a demanding user in mind. Where the iPhone 6 excels is in its feel in hand, but this is not a beauty contest, and both devices have a futuristic design here. The differences continue in the software, though not at a very huge degree. Last year's LG proprietary Android skin was the worst thing that I had ever seen, but this year everything has changed for the better. What's funny though is that the deeper that you look within, the more you notice that the UI resembles iOS 8 with its colored bars at the top and the level of minimalism in the icons. This is actually a good thing since it makes the experience of using an elegant smartphone design only better on both devices. iOS 8 is definitely the dullest UI for those searching for customization, and in that degree, LG's UI is probably the most customizable experience I know. From additional buttons at the bottom for notification tray and multi-window support, to an insane amount of options in just about every LG application bundled. Most of these options just feel like gimmicks for some, but for other people these might be useful. Where iOS 8 handles things better is in sheer performance, which is odd compared to such a powerful G3. It's not as customizable as LG's UI, but what it can do, it can always do perfectly. You'll notice that the LG UI constantly redraws widgets on the display, something which is rather annoying at times, and where iOS flows without stutter every single time. You can fix these things on the G3 with third-party launchers though, and just keep in mind that options aren't the best deal though. Again, the LG G3 UI is cool, so you might want to put up with it. Speaking of performance,
Hey guys, Jonathan here with TLD. Hope you guys are doing well. I am back with a very interesting unboxing to say the least. As many of you guys are aware, we're still about a month, maybe two away from the release of Apple's upcoming iPhone 6, but right here in front of me, I have a fully functional iPhone 6 clone that even says iPhone 6 right smack on the box. Just gotta give it a little shake and bake because this box is fighting me on getting it open, but I really found this interesting because if anybody has seen my good buddy Michael's The Detroit Borgs unboxing, his actually came in an iPhone 5 box, so I was pretty surprised when I saw iPhone 6 stamped on the side. So taking a look at the back, you can see it's very consistent in terms of what we've seen so far compared against the dummy mock-ups that leaked earlier this year. The big difference here being obviously it turns on and it functions. So because of those similarities and a few production parts that have leaked recently, I think it's fairly safe to say that this is essentially what the iPhone 6 will look like, give or take. I also just received a handful of iPhone 6 cases from Spigen, which may or may not add credibility to the whole leak and mock-up design, but regardless, if you guys are interested in checking those out, let me know by hitting that like button. Now, spoiler alert, this may look like an iPhone 6, but as far as performance goes, it is not snappy at all. It's sadly actually a massively underpowered iOS-skinned Android device, essentially. If you compare it to the iPhone 5S, for example, you can see in terms of performance on Geekbench, it gets absolutely destroyed. But what's interesting, though, if you look at the specs on paper, they're actually pretty close. They're both dual-core, they're clocked around 1 GHz, but I think this is a testament to not only Apple's performance hardware-wise, but software as well. So continuing on with the unboxing, because there actually was content and accessories which I found amusing, the first thing up is a quick start guide, which says hello right smack there on the front, just like Apple products. But if you dig a little bit deeper and look inside, the most hilarious thing that stood out to me is those are iOS 6 screenshots, so yeah. Next up, and I'm willing to bet these aren't authentic, probably less earpods and more white color stereo bass headphone mic volume control remote earphone earpods headset for iPhone. But nevertheless, at least alongside your iPhone 6 clone, you get iPhone 6 earpod clones. Following that, we have the USB wall charger hanging out there wrapped up all nicely and such. This really isn't anything too spectacular, but at the very least you can charge your iPhone 6 clone. Next up after that is the USB wall charger's PIC, the faux lightning cable, and alongside that is the SIM ejection tool. Now obviously I'm not going to bank on the lightning cable being authentic either, but at the very least it was still pretty cool that they included the entire package like you would get with an iPhone. So now that we've blasted through the unboxing portion, we can dive in and dig a little bit deeper into the clone. I think obviously the biggest noticeable difference aside from the screen size increase is the complete aesthetic change from the iPhone 5S. No longer on the back side will we see those glass portions on the top and the bottom like the iPhone 5S. That will be replaced by what I would assume to be aluminum by the final production model. That is kind of sectioned off by the dual line design on the top and the bottom where presumably the antennas would go. But I think that kind of makes the iPhone 6 design look eerily similar to the HTC One M8, and if you agree or disagree, let me know with a comment down below. One thing I do want to point out that I do not like, and it's been consistent across the dummy mock-ups, is the fact that the camera on the back side of the iPhone 6 clone pops up. So to me, that would make it very vulnerable to scratches, something similar to the iPod Touch. I know it's probably going to be sapphire coated, but at the very least, why would you want to increase chances of damaging one of the most important pieces on your phone? You can also see different aside from the iPhone 5S. The Apple logo on the iPhone 6 clone is actually indented and recessed in there, much like we saw on the iPad mini with Retina display and iPad Air. Now another big difference between these two is the actual power and sleep wake button. On the iPhone 5S, it's located on the top right hand side, whereas the iPhone 6 clone that is located on the actual right side above the SIM card tray. Now because the iPhone 6 will presumably feature a larger 4.7-inch display, I think the power button movement makes sense on a device like this. The volume rockers also look like they're getting some sort of makeover. On the iPhone 5S, we have those classic circle Apple volume rockers up and down, but on the iPhone 6 clone, those look very similar to what we see on the iPod Touch again. Now as far as whether I like them, dislike them, I'm kind of neutral, but I definitely say the increased size makes them a little bit easier to hit. So like I said previously, this is a fully functional device, but one big difference between this and the real upcoming iPhone 6 is there is no fingerprint Touch ID reader on this clone. So that of course on this device means you are limited to swiping to unlock your phone. Now when I said this thing was not a performer, I meant it. It is extremely, almost laughable laggy, and I almost want to go out kind of your average consumer style and go kind of bring this to people out in public and kind of get their feelings on how it performs, maybe even see if they notice the apparent lag compared to a current iPhone or even Android device. And if that's something you want to see, definitely let me know. So like I also previously talked about, this is